the Israel situation has driven us to the reality that all the things that we know, that there's no imminent threat, things that their statements have proven, and yet he calls treason because he's trying to scare people away from reporting it. That's also a massive crime. This is unconstitutional, whether they're lying or not. You see, this is the understanding of free speech, whether it's CNN or not. And they don't care. But you think it's free speech, you're an idiot, like he says about the rest of the examples where he threatens free speech. And people cow. Well, as Iran says, take it with a grain of salt because it's usually somewhere in the middle, but Iran is claiming, as Trump's, at 15, 20, 3,200 American casualties. I've seen it 3,500, depending on who's reporting it, which should add more salt. The point is that they're claiming a lot more than what Trump's administration is admitting. And based on the evidence, that seems to be the case, just like the last bombing in Iraq, where they lied about it. Yet 100 traumatic brain injuries, but no one was killed. I don't even think that's possible, unless it's some kind of sonic bomb with no explosion, but that's not what it was. So the point is that I think we can clearly see that they've been bombing locations that have troops, and they're just hiding it from you. And watch as we get a weird series of random plane crashes and helicopter things that a couple of Marines died over there. My opinion, but that weirdly happened after the Iraq conversation, and it just like a couple petered out of many different things, and all of a sudden, I think we all know that they would try to hide things like this from us because they don't want you to know what's going on. All my opinion, obviously. So here, Hegseth comes out and says the point we just read. My 13-year-old son popped into my office. Don't have to deal with nuclear Iran. And as Kirsten Ball says, what a lying sack of SHIT. The first Trump administration, as we just went over yesterday, ripped up the nuclear deal that was working. I literally showed you the deal. I brought up the JCPOA. I showed you the actual agreement. And in fact, it was Article 36 that said explicitly that if one of the groups, which includes the United States, violates the deal, exactly like they did, that would be justification for them to do what they did. It's all very simple, which was increase enrichment until they went back in the deal. They didn't. They then they pointed to the very enrichment that I proved to you at the time, which I can still show now, was allowed because of what they did. And they said, terrorism, look what they're doing. Just like Trump is now saying, look at what they bombed afterward, which was a legal act because of their attack. They know all these things. They're just trying to play the stupid people in the room. Or maybe they're that stupid. I don't know. But so the reality was that they created it, then drove them to a position to where they tried to make it seem bad. And then still to this day, they have not gone past the reality is, as I just showed you, the IAEA in 2025 proved to us that they were well within their safeguards at that moment, and even cited the number that Witkoff lied about, saying it was a crime. Wild. The Iranians had offered extraordinary concessions in the latest round, as we showed you. They offered to give up their entire stockpile, and they bombed the next day. But let's continue to pretend that this is about you stopping the thing that was never there. And he says, we will finish this. We will honor their sacrifice. That I was saying earlier, right? What this means to me is we're trying to use the people who died, who we told you would never happen in the first place, to convince you that we have to keep going because, well, their sacrifice. The very sacrifice you promised wouldn't happen, and now using to coerce people who never wanted this into supporting what they still don't want. Very honorable, Hegseth. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is disgusting to me because you guys lied us into the situation to begin with.
Yesterday at Dover Air Force Base, President Trump, the chairman, and I stood in solemn silence as heroes came home. Flag-draped caskets.
Yep.
We honored them. We grieved with their families, and we listened. What I heard through tears, through hugs, through strength, and through unbreakable resolve was the same from family after family. They said, finish this.
Kills me. Despite the fact that that's not what's happening. And you can, literally, one of the people they've already used, their family stood up at a press conference and said, this is not okay. We don't support this. Even though they just stood up and said they support the war. These guys are disgusting. They're using you. They're using everybody. They don't care about you. This guy is fighting for the end times, which in his mind necessitates the fall of the West. Sure, work out that for everybody. At the end of the day, this is him using people dying. And it's the flag-draped coffins that we told you this would lead to, that they swore were not going to happen, that we weren't even going to get involved, limited strikes, no boots on the ground. I mean, it's not like we all knew for a fact that this is where it would go, but we told you this is what they've done before. This is what we know Israel wants. This is what they usually get driven into. And what I think they actually, in my opinion, truly from behind it all are trying to accomplish from the global perspective. But I didn't know for sure, and then here we are. And like every other example, like the conversation of Israel and influence and everything else, Isn't it frustrating that you don't have like this waterfall of people going, holy crap, Nick's order tells you. I can't believe Ryan called this all that time ago. No, that's not going to happen. I can't believe Whitney was on this that long. Nope, not going to happen. Despite the fact that we were being pushed back on by everybody for calling this, all of the IMA, and none of this is really getting acknowledged as the Joneses of the rest use what they said wasn't true to drive you to support them again. Like, I don't even care about it being like, we got it. It's about understanding that this was clear in 2025, and we called it out in 2025. And now those people are trying to grapple onto that to use it to keep you stuck in the thing we tried to call out. And people like this are using the very death they told you would never come to pass to convince the good people out there that they just have to fight for their sacrifice. Why? Because they're good people. Because you can use their morals and their wish to care about these people to drive them to do something they don't want. That's what they do. It's exactly like that sentiment we read the other day. Oh, it was actually from JP's video about Zionism. The idea that ultimately this is some people, I forget the term, but it's bad people, evil people convincing good people that what they need to do is the right thing, but really it's the evil thing. So you've got them thinking they're doing it for the right reasons. I keep talking about this, but it's ultimately evil or bad or whatever you want to call it. So on that very note, just like I told you before, this is where we are. Like they promised it wouldn't happen. And now he's trying to convince you that those coffins that they promised wouldn't happen is why we have to keep going. Demonstrate for me how Israel's government's involved at all. As the U.S. is deploying troops, as the U.S. is largely the one on the face of this, while Israel's the one conducting the actions. We told you guys, anybody with a brain, because of, like Jeffrey Sachs just told you, every war before this has been the same thing. Here we are again. And just to be clear, what I'm talking about, this is the Israel government and then the people they might use, which would be Israelis too. But that's not how this is going. Watch. I'm worried it's going to go aggressively in the one direction, even more so when Israel might just back away. Now, lastly, the reporting from Khan News, their Telegram channel, which is Israeli media. So, and this is the actual post. It's on their Telegram channel, but they are a news media platform in Israel. The statement was that Trump was planning to take control of the Strait of Hormuz by force. Now, this should be we should be very skeptical. Many things this could be. This could be Israel reporting this to drive the action, whether Trump wants to or not. It could be that this is what they agreed on, and this Israeli platform got an inside word and is spoiling the game. But it says in a move that could also last several weeks. Keep tacking on the time, according to an Israeli source. See, Israel's also preparing to increase operations in the Strait of Hormuz. Nobody else wants to, but clearly Israel does. And they guess nobody jumped up. So Israel's like, we're going to do it with the U.S. like every other time before. So question it. This may be hype, may be false. What I find interesting is this is on the 17th. This comes out on the Telegram channel. Actually, it was specifically, the 17th. Here's Jerusalem Post. The 17th. Trump's operation in Strait of Hormuz could extend war with Iran by months. Now, to be clear, what they're talking about is his discussion of like guiding ships through, which nobody wants involvement with, I guess, other than Israel. But I'm pointing to the timing here of them telling you that what they're going to do is seize control militarily. At the same time, you have Jerusalem Post generally is referencing the larger conversation, but it could extend. So how generally could that extend it by months? Well, if it was war. Always, I'm telling you, Israeli media lets the cat out of the bag to benefit themselves and makes the U.S. government look weak and manipulated, and they never do anything about it. I think that speaks for itself. Now, this is on the 17th as well. U.S. drops 5K pound bunker buster bombs on underground missile sites near the Strait of Hormuz. Okay, well, it's starting to feel like something's going on, isn't it? It's starting to feel like this is exactly where it's going and that the U.S. is now bombing in preparation for something they're going to do. But again, this could all be window dressing. Well, understand that this is the U.S. government continuing to bomb legal locations without a declaration of war. Because every country has the right to have missiles and bombs and whatever else, and it's still ongoing. But the idea of whether the Strait of Hormuz will become a focal point. Now, again, I want to reiterate the reality that it is open. It's not closed. Now, restricted, different word. Arguably restricted. I don't know how to really verify that, but the point is the claims that has been dramatically restricted. I honestly think the claim of restriction being like 94% they claimed or whatever in the beginning, I think that was overblown. I think it was done with the idea to make the case that everyone's affected. But look at this. It's a live map. You can check it all day long, and there's tons of traffic in there. The point, in case you missed the last show, was that this is something the U.S. needed to claim. that they shut it down. And just like tanks rolling into Kiev, there was a lie in the beginning because they wanted to pretend that Russia took over all of Ukraine, but they did not. So too did Israel or Iran not block the strait. They did not put a blockade like it seems everyone told Trump that they would, to get him into the position to say, look, it'll end quickly, because they'll do that. Everyone will be unhappy. The world will come to back us and it'll be over. Not what happened, because Iran's not stupid. And so they didn't. But what they did do was threaten them and say, we'll bomb you if you go through. And they apparently didn't do that. And then it comes out, and this is what I said right in the beginning. I said, wait a minute. So I'm hearing it's closed, but I'm like, but it's not though. And yet you look back, Fox, CNN, MSNBC, every mainstream alternative ridiculous person, the strait's closed, because they're all just parroting each other. And it was not. And even I was like, am I missing something? Like, is this, it's just, I figured, well, is this like a lie? Is Iran lying about that? It just was, it wasn't. They all lied. And now it's come out, as I showed you before, that they said it's only blocked to the enemies. And here is actually what he said, the foreign minister. This is an additional one. I've already shown you points where they've said this.
They are asking other countries to come and help them, so that the Strait of Hormuz remains open, which, of course, from our perspective, it is open.
Yep, exactly.
It is only closed to our enemies, to those who carried out unjust aggression against our country, and to their allies. We have not sent any message. We are not asking for a ceasefire. But this war must come to an end in a way that it will not be repeated again.
You see my point? That's what I was saying earlier. They've come to the understanding that going through the normal, like, okay, for sake of conversation, because I'm not going to say I know for a fact that they're honorable and doing, but they demonstrate that with their continued actions and restraint. My point, though, is that you could argue that it's a ploy, but that ultimately we're talking about, God, I just lost it. Hold on.
But this war must come to an end.
Oh, right, in a way. So the point about the change of their action, right? The idea being, when I end up clicking things, I lose it. But so, we can see the change in the way that they deal with this, because their restraint, that's why I went into that about, maybe it's just because it's a ploy, but nonetheless, their restraint has been demonstrated. Like, they continue to show you that they're not just diving back in and causing this to cascade bigger and bigger, which is what Israel and the U.S. will do. They do it every time. And arguably, if they did, this would already be consuming everything, and they don't. But so what they're arguing is, look, every time we do nothing, you guys just come back and bomb again. You use it over and over. So they're driving them to change their action, which is not in the interest of anybody. But even when in the midst of that, and even given the legal justification to return the bombing, which is what they claim they always wanted, they still don't do that. All they're saying is, we're no longer going to treat with them. We're not going to allow them to give negotiations. We're not going to let them through the strait. They did this. And we're done. Like, we're standing our ground, essentially. Where it goes is up to them. I mean, I think this was a artfully done tactic, whether they're good guys or not. This is done in a way that creates a situation that puts the ball in their court, and you're calling their bluff, and you're proving to the world that they're the ones causing the problem. I think they handled this very well. So as I said, anyone who was ever reporting the strait was closed, and especially those still claiming this today, is either not an honest person or somebody bad at their job. Make sure you take note of that. Now, I'll always include this link, by the way, the maritime link. You can do this, and it's the whole world. There's plenty of these out there, by the way. Just important to keep an eye, because, this is how easy it is to prove that people are deceiving you. Now, here's Netanyahu. And Saint got a point, guys. How long have I been talking about this? And plenty of other people. It's not unique to me.
I think that what has to be done is to have alternative routes instead of going through the choke points of the Hormuz Straits and the Bab el-Mandeb Straits in order to have the flow of oil. Just have oil pipelines, gas pipelines going west through the Arabian Peninsula, right up to Israel, right up to our Mediterranean ports, and you've just done away with the choke points forever. That is definitely possible. So I see that as...
Now here's an important thing to think about here. So what he just described, guys, that is one of the major drives behind all the pipeline conversations. That's what we're talking about. This has been an issue. The 7 countries, 5 years, the clip I just played for you from Jeffrey Sachs, I mean, the conversation of driving this very thing with the endpoint being Iran. Well, they always knew that Iran could do this, and it would manipulate the supply of oil. So ever since then, you've seen the U.S. and Israel trying to create workarounds, trying to force pipelines, but they've got pushed back on, bombing ones they don't like trying to create this. And on top of that, the main thing I'm constantly pointing out is the war with Yemen, or against Yemen, the war against the people of Yemen. And this is what he just described. Now, what I think he's doing right there is basically admitting that they're losing. Because you don't come out and go, the idea is that why wouldn't you just take over Iran, which is what you want? If you took over Iran, the threat wouldn't be there. Now he's standing back and going, look, we need to work around this. That is not what Israel does. It shows me that they're admitting that they are ultimately not winning this war. That's my impression of it. But just remember this. We've talked about this for so long. What he's talking about is the Strait of Hormuz, right? That this is what Israel or Iran can control, which he's offering the choke point. So for the longest time, and what he's saying is we just need some way to get the oil from the peninsula just directly to Israel. So either directly through Saudi Arabia and through Yemen and Oman or whatever. Well, that's what he's talking about, which hasn't happened because there's been resistance and part of it's been Yemen. And so then they talked about the taking over Yemen to control the other side of the mass. So they could at least get it down the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, which is what he just named. That's right here. Right there. Or where it'll show if you get closer. That's the name of it. I don't know where the name is on there. The Bab el-Mandeb Strait is right here. So the point is that they've been trying to overtake Yemen, and they have not successfully done that in order to control that waterway. Now, my point the whole time has been because once they can control it, they would go after Iran. Now, for whatever reason, I think Netanyahu just feels like this is his last chance. That's why Lebanon got pulled into it, even though that's clumsy. So he just literally told you what we need is another way around this, which shows you both that they're not winning in this regard, because otherwise taking out Iran would solve that problem, but also just that it's always been about this. All of these wars, at least in part, have been driven by that need. And that's human lives, guys, starvation tactics, sanctions, just murderous actions, while claiming everybody else is the bad guy. Back to the point. So as I said, this is an admission, in my mind, of failure against Iran. Decentered News points out that Trump on 314, countries of the world that receive oil through the Strait of Hormuz must take care of that passage. By the way, I saw it for myself. He posted it and spelled straight wrong and deleted it and reposted it. I think I've done that before. It's just funny. Somebody who's involved with this and he can't even spell it. But it says, or it could have been typo for that matter, that they must take care of the passage with U.S. help. This should have always been a team effort, and now it will be. It will be a world together, because he thought they would sign on, and nobody did. Japan, Australia, all their chief allies, even the UK was like, we'll find a viable option, but it's not that. Now, that may change. It might have already changed, but as of right now, that I can see, it has not. Trump on 317, because clearly nobody was involved and they didn't want to be. The United States has been informed by most of our NATO allies that they don't want to get involved with our military operation. Yes, because it's obviously one of the most unpopular things we've ever seen. And it says, we no longer need or desire the NATO countries' assistance. We never did. What a child. You just said you did, man. You just said right here, we need that help. We want you to come help. But now you don't want to help. We didn't need it anyway. You're dumb and ugly. That's what it feels like. Just childish, flailing. And it says, likewise, Japan, Australia, South Korea, we do not need help of anyone. Then why'd you ask for it, man? You know what I mean? It's just a embarrassing series of events where this guy just keeps saying whatever he thinks. It's almost like they don't think we can just look back at what they just said. Maybe he is getting old. I don't know. As Aaron says, this is literally the dumbest war in human history. No hyperbole. Guess what? The U.S. may unsanction Iranian oil, the ones they're fighting right now, and to ease pressure from their actions against Iran and the oil and the price fallout. That's just crazy. That's incredible. I've pointed out in the past, for example, what was one of those examples? The Guaido point where they just drop him like a bad penny the moment they don't need him anymore. They don't care about anything they're doing. But what's hilarious to me is that you're sanctioning Iranian oil to stop Iran from benefiting from the oil. And then you attack Iran, which creates an oil issue, which everyone in the world saw coming. And then you have to unsanction the oil that will help Iran to stop what you created with an illegal war while you're still fighting Iran, which will increase the price. It just doesn't make any sense. Unless, again, that there's a bigger point to this, that there's more coordination is worth considering. But every day it feels less and less likely to me in regard to specifically the way Iran fits into what they're trying to accomplish. But that it doesn't mean they could all be fighting for a different globalist outcome if you want to look at it that way. But it's clearly, I think there's a divide here. It's worth considering that it's more coordination, but I don't see it, not right now. U.S. may unsanction Iranian oil. Even Bessent came out trying to argue, well, it's okay because, we did it with Russian oil back then. Well, that was stupid too. Not that it shouldn't be sanctioned in the first place, but the point is that you're talking about on removing the very thing that you, first of all, told us would collapse the country. The sanctions are so strong and they're always working. They never were because they worked around it just like Russia did. I mean, it hurt them dramatically. People were starving, but they survived. So they kept trying to claim that all they were doing was hurting the innocent people, which is the way this works. We unsanctioned Russian oil in the coming days. We may unsanction Iranian oil. That's on the water. This guy with his, we're unsanctioned water. That's how he talks. In other words, Iran would be able to sell oil at a premium rather than send it at a discount. So the group that you're telling us are the terrorists of the world, literally working with ISIS who want to nuke everybody. You're going to let them profit from their oil sales. You know what? Just like they let ISIS do, which is actually a bad point to make because it's not to suggest that Iran's the same, but it's just funny to me that in whatever they're fighting, there's just nothing sacred to them. They'll literally let ISIS sell oil from Iraq for the longest time, which they wildly benefited from, or Syria. It's just the U.S. government was just stealing all that. It's so gross how the corruption is so obvious. Hegseth. There's a reason we call Iran the #1 state sponsor of terrorism. Listen to what he says, and then we'll go back to the other point.
As an energy-rich country, could be, should be. Instead, like so many other places driven by a radical ideology, they've spent that money instead of investing in their people. And that's why you had millions of Iranians protesting.
Oh, is that why?
Because they felt like their quality of life didn't match what it could be or should be. And what was the Iranian state?
That's actually entirely not the truth. Like literally posted by the people protesting and the union supporting it. Not at all the truth. Very clearly. So, well, I've gone into it all, but it doesn't matter because he's just giving you probably what somebody handed to him.
The reason we call Iran the #1 state sponsor of terrorism,
which is verifiably not true,
because they took the money they make and they invest it in tunnels and they invested in missiles.
Oh, tunnels and missiles. Wait, we in Gaza again?
And they invested in launchers.
Why? What are you talking? No, we've proven that they have in the desert secret spots of launching, but we're not tunnels. What are we talking about? This is not some insurgency. We're talking about Iran. This is a majorly high developed and advanced guys, this is just so lazy. And at the end of the day, what did he just start with?
Iran is an energy-rich country, could be, should be. Instead, like so many other places driven by a radical ideology, they've spent that money instead of investing in their people.
They spend it on massive war fronts that end up using all of our tax dollars like that, like you guys do our entire lives. No, not like that. We're fighting for freedom, Ryan. The point is that he literally just argued, by the way, this is Israeli talking points about anyone they're fighting. Insert tunnels and human shields. It's like the same thing they do everywhere. And they've always been proven to be lying. Not that they don't or can't do them, but they make up stories, even though there's the reality mostly in Gaza too, is that Israel was involved with building most of those tunnels. It goes back to well before. I've proven this on their own documentation. The ones under the Shifa hospital, by the way, were built by the Israelis while it was being used. Easy to look up. And anyway, that they use that money to build their tunnels and things that aren't and that's why they're not an oil. Okay, but wait a minute. Didn't we just go over this? We did. The reality is that they are sanctioning Iranian oil. Okay, wait a minute. So you're telling me that despite your sanctions that restrict them from being able to become an oil-rich country, that they should have just done it anyway, somehow magically? Or suggesting that the money that they're not getting because you're sanctioning them was somehow still spent on tunnels? Hegseth, you're a moron. And I think that's what everyone's starting to see, quite frankly. And I think either way, it's the person who is just parroting the narrative. But in a way that I think it sounds like he's just reading off a card that someone handed him. You can't stand there and tell me we're going to unsanction their oil that we've always been hindering, and then in the other press conference tell me that they could be the greatest oil-rich country if they just weren't using the money they're not getting through that thing because you're sanctioning them on things that they shouldn't be spending them on. The ridiculousness of this administration just continues to impress me. Now, in general, for time, just because it's just longer, I'll get into this into more depth. But today, we'll end with this. Pete Hegseth, his embarrassing behavior exposed. Defense Secretary doesn't understand anything, and he is over his head during classified briefings. Now, this with there's Democrats, but there's also people involved with which one is it? The subcommittee on the House Committee, or the Military and Foreign Affairs Subcommittee on the House of Wait, that's some read weird. Military and Foreign Affairs Subcommittee of the House Committee on, I just read it weird. So again, Military and Foreign Affairs Subcommittee of the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reforms. So somebody within that is expressing, I see Pete Hegseth in the classified briefings and I'm embarrassed for him. He can do nothing beyond read the script that's given him. And this is, where was it? It reports to Midas Network. He added, he can't answer detailed questions. He doesn't understand the strategy. Not that there is one. He doesn't understand the tactical operation. Okay. Now, clearly, you could argue, as Democrat, as one of the people in here saying this, that they hate him, and it's because of their partisanship. Always probably the case to some degree. But it's also the fact that we can just quite literally see that this man is out of his depth. And the idea that he is not qualified for this position, so that should matter right there in the beginning. He's never done this before, and he has no reason to understand what he's doing. But no, he's got the best people around him. Well, guess what? The people around him are the ones telling you that he doesn't know what he's doing. And he's, in fact, more focused on memes. Because that's the ultimate point here. Literally says, jump to it. A senior White House official, so in their team, was closely involved with the video making effort described as a collegial creative endeavor. We're over here just grinding away on banger memes, dude, says the person in the White House working for Hegseth. Also granted anonymity to speak candidly. There's an entertainment factor to what we do, but ultimately it boils down to the fact that no one has ever attempted to communicate with the American people this way. You mean like every other time before this, though, with memes, and that's just not true. But what they're actually talking about is these ridiculous things they're putting out. And I'm going to go into this in more depth. I just want to point it out before we finish, where they're trying to tell you that, no, we're correcting the narratives. We're making sure you understand that this is not the truth. This is what it is. A bowling meme where the guy bowls, strikes, and then it overcuts that with something else of bowling pins saying we won't stop making nuclear weapons. It's supposed to be Iranian, I guess. And then it gets a strike with American bowl, and that's it. Pretty sure there's nothing of a substance there. That's what I keep telling you. It's all just a bunch of flash and no substance, and there's no point. They're not correcting anything. But if you read this, they're convinced that what they're doing is changing the opinion about what's really happening by pointing out or giving you things that show Grand Theft Auto and then a bomb blowing up, and that's it. It's over. And that's literally the whole thing. It goes back and forth, back and forth. What's supposed to be corrected right there? Guys, the whole point of the people criticizing it, this is literally just about like entertainment. While they're letting Americans die, while they're fighting for a foreign country, telling you we're working for American interest, you're putting out slop. You're putting out nonsense that's supposed to, convince people? And all they keep saying is, oh my God, look, it got 17 million views. We're so popular. I'm not kidding. You could factor in that that's a lot of people who, like me, think you're ridiculous, right? That we're watching it because we're going, oh my God, I can't believe, some of us at least, but somehow all the impressions are all they care about, because this is the social media presidency. This is the performative theater that we're living through. It's painful because it's embarrassing and the world sees it. And there's tons of them, guys. I'll go over them. Each one of them is even more ridiculous than the last one. None of it has any substance. None of it even has a point that you can really discern other than we're cool and they're bad guy. And that's literally what it's trying to relay, excuse me. And of course, this post back from the 14th where it says, one mission, clear objectives, destroy Iran's terrorist proxy. And then that's not what we're doing. No different new clear mission every 30 seconds. Did we destroy the proxies? Are we talking about Hamas and Hezbollah now? Are we talking about the Houthis? Are we bombing now? No, we're bombing the civilians in certain locations and other facilities. And then I guess just bombing oil stuff. But trust me, it's about the proxies, because the promise that was the one clear objective. No, it wasn't. Because that one clear thing changes every 20 seconds you talk to somebody in this administration. And just to end, the brutal reality of what's still happening to people in the West Bank, which I actually can't believe the New York Times, Palestinian man recounts brutal sexual assault by Israeli settlers. Linda points this out as well. This is the first New York Times headline actually acknowledging sexual violence against Palestinians. It's been going on for decades. I don't know how much people can deny it, guys. This is insane. I mean, it's very clear what this group is. You have this person who is supposed to be the moderate person in the Knesset, who is literally screaming about starving people in Gaza. You have Dropside News highlighting that there's currently 51% of Palestinian children who are being held in Israeli prisons who are there without charge, which we've covered well before October 7th. It's just much worse right now. 351 Palestinian children are currently detained in their prisons with no charge, or rather, 51% without charge. The rest of them, they're under other kind of administrative allegations and whatever else they're doing. It's insane, guys. Throwing rocks or whatever else. But this is the democracy we're fighting for, right? Well, that's not happening in Iran. They have all kinds of claims about the weird thing, but they always end up, like, I shouldn't even say it like that, but the reality of what they continually claim about Iran, every day I do this shows to be false. That's not to say Iran is not capable of doing terrible things. That's my point, guys. You have to understand, just because they're being lied about does not mean that they're not capable or haven't done other things. But it should still matter to you that what they do is lie about them in the midst of a war that's killing Americans. As Israel quite literally demonstrates that it's one of the most egregiously brutal and just, I mean, you tack on the things that they're committing genocide. And this is what we're doing. We're fighting with the genocide group to fight against the people they don't like. They're bombing in Lebanon. Airstrikes, apartment buildings in Beirut. It's like bombing New York City, guys. It doesn't matter. On the record, public and plain daylight, videotaped, literally killing it. And the idea is, well, we gave them time to leave. Okay, fine. So Mexico says, guys, get out of Houston. We're bombing there next week. You going to leave? Do you have, I mean, it's your home. You live there. Secondarily, they don't have the legal right to bomb this location. And on top of that, what you'll always find out is they go, we're going to bomb there in an hour, and they bomb in 3 minutes. Every time. I've gone over this extensively in Palestine. It's the same thing here. And they kill all these people, and they go, well, we warned them. Well, what about the law? Just because you say, look, Lindsey Graham goes, they drop leaflets. Okay, what legal right do they have to do this? Is there a declaration of war? No. They're killing civilians? Doesn't matter. They drop leaflets. And even when they do that, I can go through this. So it just makes me sick that we have to continue to pretend that these are not monsters actively murdering innocent people in their homes and acting like what they're doing is the right thing. Yeah, we'll go into more of this later. They're bombing. This was something we'll get into in depth. They bombed another Reuters journalist in Lebanon. The guy was literally giving a report, and one of these bombs dropped down behind him and seriously hurt one of the people with him. And just before, here's what he posted. Targeting journalist is a war crime. And Israel saw it and said, oh, yeah? And then bombed him. This is what we're dealing with, guys. And I already showed you in Lebanon, this happened early. This was October 13th, 2023. Reuters journalist killed by Israeli bombing. I covered this at the time. Not even Reuters was willing to acknowledge this. Right here, when it first happened. I reported on this before Reuters admitted it happened. And then finally Reuters admitted, yes, they were killed by an Israeli bomb. And you can prove it. Even Twitter came in and told you, yes, it was killed by an Israeli airstrike. You know what happened? Nothing. Nobody was ever charged. There was never crime. Doesn't matter. And by the way, in case you understand, you can prove they targeted this area. They actually told you they were going to bomb it, then bombed it and killed these journalists because they were there. That's my opinion. But you could prove that they targeted a location that they told them they were in. They told them they were journalists, told them they were there, and then you can prove that Israel ordered somebody to bomb that location. I went over all of it. It was different points in the conversation, but the timelines were exact and obvious, and even they had to cover it. Now it's happening again. But nobody seems to care who's supposed to be fighting for the freedom of the world. And it's all very clear. We'll leave it there. We'll come back tomorrow. But guys, the reality is that this stuff is clear. And we just can't hide from that. Like, there's just no reason not to be honest about what we're seeing. That the obviousness is one, that this country is dramatically being driven into a position that is in the interest of anything but Americans. And on a global sense, you got both of these elements, I think, trying to recreate some global structure where they're in charge forever, apparently. For the emperor-in-chief forever, Donald Trump, with Rubio and Heggs and Jared Kushner and Witkoff and some kind of forever board of peace that runs. I mean, it's just insane how we can't be honest about what that is. And the people that are out there telling you they're fighting globalism, how we can't see how ridiculous they are, how embarrassing it is that they're still trying to push for this. And anybody that is now shifting over to the other conversation, at least give them credit for calling it as it is, but consider whether they're opportunists and not truly caring about the truth. But either way, the ones that are still there, guys, you've got to be clear about what this is. And I just hope people can see this, because right now, where this is drifting into is this is pre-stage Iraq stuff, guys. We're watching this happen. People called it out then. We're not going to be welcomed as heroes. This is going to be chaos. It is going to kill more Americans. It is going to affect the global conversation. And guess what? In every single case before this, Israel has stood by and watched and benefited every single time. But today is different, because the different thing today is that I think right now, especially Americans, can see that. They're literally talking about Israel doing this to our country to the point to where they're using that to argue that Trump's somehow within it fighting back. Hey, I hope so. But if that's the case, then you have to ask yourself why he gave them $20 billion. You have to ask why he sides with them in every conversation. You have to ask why what he does is clearly in the interest of what they want. But aside from all of that, clearly he's fighting from within. But question everything, guys, because if they are aside from the fact that there's plenty of crimes that have been committed, regardless of whether he's secretly fighting from within, if it ends up in a way that this stops what they're doing and evil, even I will say I'm glad that it ended up that way. But I will never be the one to say that the ends justify the means, because that's not true. It matters how you get there. And I also just don't think that's what's happening. In case you want to know from my gut, it's pretty clear that the evidence and my gut back up the fact that Trump is either a willing participant in what's happening or he has no choice. That's what the facts line up with. But we'll keep covering it as it goes forward. Thank you for tuning in. I love you all. As always, question everything. Come to your own conclusions. Stay vigilant.